What Android phone should you buy? That video's coming up right now. Let's go. So, what is up guys? Nick here helping you to master your technology, and welcome to this video titled What Android Should You Buy? Now, I'm creating this video with multiple Android phones here to talk about, if you're coming from iPhone or you're coming to Android for the first time from any phone and you want to buy a phone, there's so many options, it just can make you say, forget it altogether. But I can help you break down that decision right here in this video because I've used phones from budget phones to flagship smartphones to the latest and greatest on the market here, and I got something from pretty much all those categories, even to older used smartphones like the LG G4 here. So personally, let's begin with the cheapest of cheap phones. So you can go find prepaid smartphones like this Cricket ZT Grand X3 or cheap phones like some of those Galaxy phones that you'll find at the local Best Buy or something like that. Or even on whatever carriers you have, there's always a cheaper phone that seemingly offers a great value. So something like a cheaper budget smartphone like this one right here usually offers a great value until you start doing things like gaming, you start using the camera, where then you start to desire a little bit more. So I would recommend you get a very cheaper phone if you're going to be somebody who's going to just be using a phone for daily tasks like calling, texting, email, and you're not going to use the camera hardly ever. You don't really care about stuff like that. Honestly, you just need a phone that works. Most of the cheaper phones will do that job just fine. But if you want to game, you want to use the camera, do me a favor, you want to do yourself a favor maybe, just stay away from the cheaper smartphones. And that takes me into the mid-range smartphones. So here is a Samsung Galaxy J7 Prime. This phone's about $200 depending on where you look, brand new. And it does start to creep up near the old used flagship smartphones from the Android department. And I would recommend you get a mid-range phone if you want actually decent specs. So on a mid-range phone, your camera will be pretty solid. It's not going to be quite as good as flagship phones, but it's definitely not going to disappoint you. It kind of seemingly gives you a camera that comes from like phones that are a couple years old in a newer body. But if you're going to spend the price point of a mid-range smartphone, you might want to take a look at some of the older used smartphones that somebody has used in the past that were flagship devices, such as phones like the Galaxy Note 5, Galaxy S6, S6 Edge. Phones like that used are usually cheaper. They have come down in price, and they usually match the new retail price of a mid-range phone, which still cannot compete with the older flagship phones. So yeah, buy a mid-ranger if you want a brand new phone with solid specs that will get the job done. They usually have pretty great cameras, pretty great screens. They're just not top of the line. And that takes me into the segment of the used smartphone game. Now, this is one of the areas I really enjoy purchasing from because usually if you just wait like 6 months to a year, you can usually get a top spec Android phone like the GS7, for example, which is now can be found like $300 on eBay or Swappa. You can use sites like this and you can get really great smartphones that are less than a year, maybe just 1 year old. And this really does kill a lot of those mid-range phones and blows it right out of the water. So this is my favorite category of smartphone for the best value. It's almost like buying a used car. If you buy a brand new car, you pull it off the lot, it's already lost like half of its value. So it's better to buy a used car that has like, 20,000 miles or so than to go ahead and buy a brand new car that barely has any more features. It costs $20,000 more, and it's also going to drop value instantly. Now, I know some people like that new car smell. We like that new phone smell. But over here, I would recommend getting a used flagship smartphone as probably one of the best values in the game is going with a slightly older smartphone. Now, that takes me into the premium segment of smartphones. So when talking about some of the most innovative and premium tech on the market, the Galaxy S8, for example, LG G6, these smartphones are definitely great purchases if you're really a big tech head. You really love technology and you utilize all of its features. So if you're a person who really likes to dig around and learn about tech, you develop on your phone or you're a developer, or you take tons of pictures and this is your primary workhorse for your business, stuff like that, or even for school, this is your primary worker, so you don't have a laptop, that's when I do recommend you go ahead and pick up a premium smartphone like the LG G6 or the Galaxy S8 Plus. People that are really going to utilize the features, these are really kind of necessary in my personal opinion to pick up, even though their higher cost is justified due to the fact that if you're using your phone to make you the money back, it usually will be justified. Also, if you're buying one of these phones and you're just getting it on a contract plan, here's another area where you can actually pick up the latest and greatest pretty cheaply. But you know, it's not totally cheap because you're not paying the full price of the phone. It's actually subsidized due to the fact that you're paying a bill every month with a contract or something like that. So definitely still paying for the phone outright. It's just over a longer period of time. But if you can scoop up a deal, always go with the latest and greatest flagship. And that brings me into the Chinese phones of the world. So stuff like Xiaomi and Huawei are definitely making a name for themselves. These kind of companies are really killing it with the budget level of smartphones. The only thing I don't like about those phones is their software is a little bit more janky. I think a little bit less polished than something like on the Galaxy S8, LG G6, Galaxy S7. These phones have been worked on the software a little bit more in depth. I feel like they spend more on research and development, and it's a little bit more polished experience. So if you want to save a buck and you want a great bang for the buck type phone with great build quality and great looks, then the Chinese phones like Xiaomi, Huawei got some great options for you out there. And don't forget phones like the Moto G5 Plus. These kind of phones, this is a mid-ranger right here. We talked about them earlier. But these kind of phones can kind of fool you because they look premium, but they're definitely still mid-rangers. So don't be fooled into thinking that this is a premium smartphone. But this is a great phone for those of you who want a good-looking smartphone, but you don't want to, drop top dollar on a smartphone. So I do recommend you guys going ahead and picking up Unlocked if you are going to buy an Android smartphone. This way you're not tethered to your carrier. But if you ask the question, what Android phone to buy, it very comes down to personal preference. But this should have helped you out in deciding if you want a cheaper phone, a used flagship, a flagship smartphone. This should have helped you break it down. Now, if you're looking into, LG, Samsung, Huawei, they're all making competitive devices. So for pretty much every company, you can find a competitive style device. So for example, Galaxy S8, LG G6, Galaxy J7 Prime, and then you have stuff from LG that's a little bit cheaper that can compete with phones like this. You can also get, the Motorola G5 Plus, or you can get something like the OnePlus 3, which is a used flagship phone, which is about the same price as a Moto G5 Plus here. So there's definitely phones that can compete with each other in pretty much every category. The rest comes down to personal preference. And if you want a phone with a stylus, look no further than the Galaxy Note 5 currently, or you can go with the older Galaxy Note 4, for example. But if you ask the question, what Android to buy, this should have helped you out in this video. If you guys enjoyed this content, please go ahead and click the like button for me. If you found it helpful, share it with somebody who's also maybe looking for an Android phone. This can help them out a lot. And I will catch you all in the next one. Be sure to be well. Nick here, and peace.